The Dialed In Angling Podcast presented by Onyx Fish, Fish USA, Skidoo, Runnings, Minnesota DNR, Strike Master, 13 Fishing, L&M Fleet Supply, and DeWalt. Well, in this week's episode of the podcast, we've got a ton of fishing reports for you. We've got some insight on a little bit of Mille Lacs fishing. We just got off the lake. We're actually on the shores of Mille Lacs right now, sitting at Hunters Point Resort with a couple of good friends of mine. No strangers to the podcast or the Dialed In Angling TV show. That's Mitch Hackemuller and Nick Sakella. Gentlemen, welcome back to the podcast, and thanks for going along with this journey for me on Mille Lacs Lake, doing a little ice trolling.
You bet. Absolutely. Good beer.
Hello.
Welcome back, guys. Hey, we had an epic day of catching fish. You know, I've been on Mille Lacs several times this year, and it seems like every day has gotten better and better when I've been out here as far as numbers of fish, different year classes of fish. I will say one thing about Mille Lacs, there is no lack of walleyes. However, the average size of the walleye right now, we caught all different year classes, but that average size fish that we caught was probably 11 inches. And everyone that comes to Mille Lacs Lake is going to experience catching an absolute pile of that year class of walleyes. You know, we saw them last winter. They were all those 5, 6, 7-inch walleyes. Now they're all 9 to 11-inch fish. We saw some a little bit this summer. I kind of bumped into them a few times when I was looking for jumbo perch. I was throwing jigging wraps out, like little number 5 jigging wraps, and I'd see these massive schools of walleyes off the gravel, and or at massive schools of fish off the gravel. I knew they were small. I thought they were perch, and I started throwing on them, and they turned out to be those small walleyes, and they were absolutely everywhere. When I'd get off a structure this summer, I'd see them everywhere. So I've been telling George, I've been telling everybody around the lake, even the DNR, the fisheries, at the Mille Lacs fisheries meetings, that, you know, people this winter are going to catch a ton of those fish. And we've proved it. Going out today alone, just today, us, 3 of us iced over 150 of those fish alone from that 9 to 11 inch range, not to mention the 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20-inch fish that we encountered, the 21s, the 22s. There's a lot of year classes in this lake, but that predominant year class that we're seeing right now, that is going to bode well for fishing in this lake for years to come. Because if you look back to that 2013 year class was similar to that, where everywhere you went, you caught them. But this is even more so. Wouldn't you guys agree?
Yeah, you had been saying how you've been seeing those younger year class, them smaller fish, and I was like, oh, sweet, the lake sounds healthy. Without seeing what I saw today, the wolf packs of those 11-inch, 9 to 11-inch fish coming in, just filling the screen, absolute like piranhas. I mean, it's absolutely incredible how many of those fish are in this lake. I was blown away to see.
Yeah, I'm shocked at everywhere we went. And I think anglers are going to encounter the same thing that we have, is like everywhere you go, you encounter those fish. And then when you hit those holes where there are those wolf packs like you're referring to, it's like as fast as you get it down there. It's like pan fishing, crappie fishing. I don't know how else to equate it to anything else. You get your bait down there. You're actually trying to keep it away from the small ones, keep a bunch interested, and they're almost like decoys for the bigger walleyes. Like if you can get them high in the water column, it like draws fish to your location.
Then you just got to get it down fast enough before they can get it.
Yeah, and like, dropping the spoon down into those fish, there'd be 3, 4 on my screen. I would like lift it above my zoom, and they would race up so fast. It would be like an upbite, like a crappie, where your rod tip goes slack and your line goes slack because they're hitting it so hard. And there was a couple times I know I didn't have bait on, and they just smoked the spoon, and it was like a full inhale. And what I'm really hoping for is, I know there's that this year's perch class, this young of the year perch that hatched this year, I guess it was a poor hatch, And so the DNR was saying that a lot of those fish aren't going to have a lot to eat this year. I think the saving grace for Mille Lacs Lake in general, that I believe a lot of these fish are going to make it, is simply the simple fact that there's a ton of bug hatches that go on out here in the winter. You saw today, I don't know if you guys noticed when we were pulling the jigs out of their mouth, how many of those little bloodworms were in their mouth. So they're eating invertebrates, even though there's not a lot of small forage for those things to eat. I think as soon as the mayflies start hatching, the lake flies, all the hatches that happen throughout the winter, those fish are going to have a ton to eat, and they're going to be scarfing it down. I know that when we actually go out and start chasing perch, we're going to be catching a lot of those fish.
And when you see the size of a lot of these, the bigger walleyes, the 17 to 22 inches, I don't think there's any shortage of food how round they are.
Well, they're just saying the shortage of forage for those smaller, little fish.
Sure. Yep.
Yeah. There's no shortage of forage in this lake. We know that. I mean, we caught tullabies. You could see the bait on live scope. I mean, there's bait everywhere. And it's just a matter of getting those really small little minnows for those little walleyes to eat.
And they're ferocious. They will eat, I think, just about anything you put in front of them, except piranhas, and that is the truth.
Yeah, and everyone's going to encounter that when they come out to Mille Lacs. Everyone's going to see them. They're going to get them in the rocks. They're going to get them in the gravel, on the mud flats. Boy, they're absolutely everywhere.
But what a fun bite. Like, you got kids?
Yeah.
I mean, that's why we're saying like you're catching little walleyes, but it's like panfish. I mean, it's as fast as you can get down there. And they stick around too. I mean, sometimes to the point of annoyance when you're trying to get big fish, but they keep you busy. I mean, even in high sun, middle of the day, it was nonstop. It never stopped anywhere we went.
I know for a fact, one hole I caught 40 of them in today. 40 of them. And I'm not joking. Yeah.
When I was having lunch, just sitting by the machines, where I was jigging in there, I had my pop sitting up there and I was eating sausage. I know in that hole, same thing. It was 30 to 40 fish, and I was still trying to pull it away from them. The cool part is the walleyes in general are biting much better than they were last winter. Last winter, early ice, I came out, and the bite was really pretty good, and I kind of had this hope that the walleye bite was going to be great all year, and it was tougher out here. I mean, if it weren't for the perch last year, it would have been extremely tough fishing out here. I mean, you look at the numbers that the DNR put up from last year as far as the harvest numbers. I mean, they were pretty darn low considering how many anglers were out here fishing last winter. And this year is not the case. Those walleyes are biting a little bit better. We're getting big fish. They're still super plump. So at some point when we get those nasty cold fronts in January and February, the fishing's going to slow down. But at least for now, we're at somewhat early ice. I consider all of December early ice. We got a few bonus weeks on the front end of this year, but as we get towards Christmas, New Year's, it's still early ice out here to me, just because that's typically the time frame where the fish are biting. And I think the bite's going to continue well into January. Obviously, the more cold fronts we get, that's going to slow that down. But I definitely was pleasantly surprised the last 2 weeks how good the fishing has been out here.
And, also part of that, I feel like, is once all the ice houses come out, the wheelhouses, everything, obviously the pressure happens. So, I mean, if you guys take advantage of this early ice bite and get out there before, the huge crowds are out there and all that, and that's just not on Lex, it's anywhere. So,
yeah, I mean, the noise factor is a thing. I mean, you can see it now with forward-facing sonar. You can only imagine when you're on a structure where there's piles of fish, all of a sudden the houses start coming out there, those fish are gone. I mean, today, Mitch and I had an awesome spot to go to, and then Nick decided he was going to ride the snowmobile around and mark out the spot. No, I'm joking, but just us pulling up with the snowmobiles and drilling holes.
Well, walking even. I mean, we were watching on the scope. Like, don't even punch the hole because you just push them ones another 30 feet just by walking over them in 32 feet of water. It's pretty wild to watch. So imagine what a truck in a wheelhouse can do.
Or 50 of them.
But it's amazing. Well, yeah, it's amazing too. Like once we drilled and got set up, those fish did come back. They settle in, they come back. The first 20 minutes were like, gosh, where'd they go? You could see them on live scope ripping around. But they did settle back in.
Yes.
And that's why you see a lot of these people, I think, where they pull up with their wheelhouses and it's a madhouse out there. And they're like, yeah, there was no day bite, but they started biting at night because everything calms down. Those fish start coming back in.
Everyone was sad.
I've always said that I think a lot of that night bite has to do with the fact that all the noise calmed down. You didn't have people ripping around in trucks, ripping around on machines. I've seen it firsthand where you're like the only person on a set of structure, whether it's gravel bar, mud flat. And this doesn't just happen on Mille Lacs, but it happens all over. But you're the first one out there and you're catching them like crazy. Well, those fish didn't disappear, right? They're still there. But guess what happens? Everyone pulls up, those fish disperse, they're gone. And, a lot of times if you push them a ways off that structure, they're going to go find a spot where that's less noisy. The food's there, you know what I mean? And find somewhere else. I know a couple spots in particular that always get good later in the season. And I equate it a lot to the pressure that's on the other structures. And a lot of these spots are spots that aren't really mapped that well. Maybe a hard bottom spot that's out in the mud that's not marked particularly well, or something that just doesn't stand out on a map.
Because guys are not going to use it.
And they're not going to use it. And you go there early ice, and I always think, oh, man, it's going to be really great. And it's not. And then come the season when the floodgates open up, and then all of a sudden those spots get really good. And so, nothing you can do about the fishing pressure. It's coming. We're getting past Christmas here. As we get into New Year's, and as soon as they start building roads and they're going to come. They're going to enjoy it. I always say, people enjoy that as much as we do getting out early ice. And I like the seasons, and I do like the challenge sometimes of getting away from the other people. And that's why this year it'll be interesting, depending on how much snow we get, to determine whether, the people can gain access to all these spots or just a few.
Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised out there. The travel is pretty darn good. I mean, a lot of that snow we had kind of blown off the lake and really packed down, hardened down well. I mean, you could, obviously you're not driving trucks out there right now, but you could drive a vehicle anywhere on that lake if, ice was thicker. But the travel is really good, and it froze over pretty smooth
shape.
too.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah,
it's really good shape.
Is. I mean, from where we were at early in December to where we're at now, it's amazing, how quickly I've said it like in every podcast, I swear, since Thanksgiving, that I can't believe how quickly we made ice this year. But it just continues to make ice, and it's good, solid black ice. And, it just goes to show that when you get these big time cold snaps and you don't have a ton of snow, you can make a ton of ice quickly. Let's shift into, just as far as jigging cadence, what we were using, techniques we were using, how we were going about ice trolling. I would say for early ice, we hung around some of these areas longer than I typically do. And it's because of the number of fish that were in that area. Just the sheer biomass of fish we were seeing on some of these spots with forward-facing sonar. And we saw that drilling and moving around was spooking them, that we hung a little bit more than I normally do. And
patience was key.
I think it is. I really do in this case. There's other times where you get a ton of snow on the ice and the noise isn't a factor, and you got to go to them to catch them. But right now, and it, for us, the last few days anyway, it seems like letting them come to us was way better than trying to get on top of them.
And again, that was because of the spooky nature, walking over them. So if you just sat in a hole, didn't walk around, and just waited, you heard the numbers in the beginning of the podcast. So it was pretty good.
And see, last week, up at Lake of the Woods with Rem, we were dropping on big ones, and so sometimes I equate it to the mood of the fish. If they're in a really bitey mood, they don't care if you walk on top of them. I've been out here with Pete before. I've been on Winnebagosh before, where everybody's hole hopping and they're spooking and we can't get on top of them. Then as soon as they start firing, they don't care. You start walking on top, it doesn't matter. Early ice, late ice, whatever. If they're firing, they're firing. And so a lot of times when you get out to a spot, you kind of have to watch your forward-facing sonar like we did today, where prime example, we saw fish out at 40 feet, 50 feet, for example. I said, Nick, grab the auger, go out there, start drilling a hole. if you walk over the top and you see those fish shove off to the side, you know, okay, we're not going to be able to run them down today. This is the type of day where we need to set up and let the fish come to us. And, you know, that's how we went about it today. Now, if I had shined out there, you drilled a hole, those fish didn't move, you dropped a spoon down and caught them, I'd be like, it's time to sharpshoot. Let's go running and gunning.
No, absolutely. And you can use that forward facing sonar to just really see the fish before you know they're going to spook off when you drill them. If you see that right away. So just going on a structure before you really blow it up and seeing how many fish are there and hoping that a good number of them come back to the structure after it settles down is the key.
It's kind of like open water. If you're out there in your boat and you shine on them and they're spooky just because of the signal of the forward facing sonar, what do? Can't shine them, right? You see them, cast at them, sort of blind fish. I kind of look at it the same way in the winter. If I'm shining on them, I see them slink off to the side. I know instantly. I don't even have to drill on them. I know what kind of mood they're in. But if you shine on them and they're just kind of hanging there, maybe coming towards you even, and they're up moving in the water column, you know they're aggressive. They're going to bite. It's game on. And so just take that into account. You know, if you're out looking for fish, looking at the mood of the fish, that's the power of forward-facing sonar, is being able to see that and make a decision how you're going to go about fishing. The other cool part too, like today, how we were fishing today, both Nick and I started out with glow spoons. Mitch had the gold on, right? It was fairly cloudy this morning, but there was a little sun peeking out, and it was like super apparent. Mitch was catching them and we weren't. And so that's what's nice about fishing as a group, mixing it up as far as colors, style of spoons, different, you know, size spoons if you want. You know, Mitch had sort of a small gold one on. I started out with a fairly big glow spoon. I know you did as well, Nick. And quickly we were able to tell instantly, not only that Mitch was catching them, but the mood of the fish. And when they came in on our sonar, that they weren't having it. And that's the other powerful piece of that puzzle, is being able to see their mood and seeing how they're reacting to that bait. And, you know, if they're not having it, switching quickly to get on what they want, and also to work as a group to like mix it up. And don't forget, it's not just color. A lot of times it's the size of the bait. You know, I'll have one person start with a real small profile spoon, then have another person start with a larger spoon. I do it guiding all the time, where I'll kind of mix it up purposely. And throughout the day, you'll see that colors will change, size baits will change sometimes, the aggressive fish. This year in particular, with all these small fish, I'm going to spend more time upsizing my baits just to keep those small fish off.
I think you're going to have to.
Smart.
You have to. Just like probably a bad example, but you switched to a jigging wrap and you were still catching the small ones. But I mean, just imagine, okay, maybe we need to go to a number 7 jigging wrap instead of a number 5.
Right. Yep. And I think that would make a little difference. Absolutely.
Well, look at the size of the fish, you know, the bigger fish that we're talking about than 17 to 22 to 25s, whatever, you know, the size you're going to run into, you know, between that and what we were seeing for the size, you know, of the Cisco's Thule's, I wonder how big you could get away with. I really do.
Well, I mean, you caught one of those Cisco's and they're 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 inches long. They're all kind of in that size. When you see them on forward-facing sonar, you see schools and schools of Thule's Cisco's, and they're all a little bit bigger. So I think you could get away with a chrome ripping wrap, number 6, or number 7 jigging wrap, especially early like this. I thought so many times I should have put a ripping wrap on. I really wanted to. I love fishing call baits. I love fishing horizontal baits. I know in the next few days I'm going to be doing more experimenting with baits, because today, you know, just trying to keep those little ones at bay, I don't know what more I could do. You know, I tried putting a whole minnow on. I was actually using like a bigger fathead, like a whole minnow, just to try to keep those fish off, and didn't matter. They were eating it. And so, I mean, look they were hitting our dead sticks.
Yeah, they're aggressive.
And so
5-inch Sacramento.
Again, piranhas.
Yeah, bigger profile spoons maybe. You know, but that's one thing is size of the spoon matters a lot. I've seen it out here where they don't want the little spoons. They want the big baits, big profile baits. I've seen it in the summer with crankbaits where you have the little number 5, number 4 shad wraps on lead core. They don't want it. You put a giant profile bait, boom. And the exact opposite can happen as well. You've seen it where you have big spoons on. They come in, it might bring them in, or you bring them in on a big rattle bait, and then boom, they hit that little tiny 16th ounce spoon.
And even the rattle or not rattle in your spoon, I've seen that make a big difference.
Oh, huge. Yeah, the water clarity is always, super gin clear out here in the winter, especially now with zebra mussels. But even back in the day, before zebra mussels, this lake would always clear up in the winter, like a lot of lakes do when they get capped off. And, going from those glow style spoons up to, the real bright, the natural colors, the gold, the silver, those two were absolutely dominating today. There was without a doubt, they didn't want the glow spoon. They wanted that gold, juicy, loosey color, and they wanted that blue chrome jigging wrap.
High sun, and like I was saying, there's really not that much snow cover right now, so that light was getting down there. I think those chromes and golds really shine today.
I guess, and I've always been a starter with gold or silver here, but I mean, even back to the days when we used to rig and pull blades, I mean, I was always a hammered gold blade. Always. Yeah. I don't know why. It's just, it was my go-to.
Well, it's a great Mille Lacs color. Just like Lake of the Woods. It's hard to beat that gold. I don't know. Just over the last couple of years, I've just been a huge fan of Wonder Bread and Pink UV. And not that I'm not a fan of gold, because that's always tied up in my box too. But just knowing you had a gold one on, I instantly went towards that Wonder Bread color. And I know Nick put the pink one on.
I've had Wonder Bread work here phenomenally.
It's unbelievable. I mean, even Pete yesterday was slamming them on the Wonder Bread, but it was a little cloudier yesterday, maybe a little different conditions. So it's good to work as a team like that.
Always.
And it's good to have the dead sticks out. Always. Mille Lacs is just one of those lakes that you got to have a dead stick down.
Well, we caught fish on the dead sticks, and it's just a free fish. I mean, you're putting all this work and effort into jigging these fish and cadences and all this stuff, and you look over and that one just hung itself. You didn't even have to do anything. Someone gets to just go and catch it.
It won't be long, and the wheelhouses will be out here. The crowds will be out here. You're going to have the absolute army, which, right now they're up on Red. They're on Lake of the Woods. They're coming to Mille Lacs, and they're going to come big time. Usually between Christmas and New Year's, you can mark your calendars that the floodgates will open up and the people will be here. I'm amazed up until this point how quiet this lake has been. And a lot of it is just because there was some uneven ice. But now that resorts have stake roads out to the gravel, out to the mud, all of the secondary brake lines, we're seeing really good ice conditions. The people are coming, and they're going to experience really good fishing on Mille Lacs Lake. And it's good to see. I like all of our lakes to thrive. Usually when the bite's good on Mille Lacs, that means the entire fishing industry is having a good season. But I like to see a good bite on Mille Lacs, a good bite on Red like we're seeing right now. Red continues to be an unbelievable, just knockdown, drag out, good fishing. Same with Lake of the Woods. Lake of the Woods, guys are putting up big time numbers. And so when you have the big three like that, not to mention Winnebagosh with a pile of fish in there, all three of us were up there this fall.
Unbelievable.
And then you got Leech Lake where you can get perch, big walleyes, Rem's out there all the time. There's just really good fishing in Minnesota right now. And it's good to see. Not to mention Waubay, Bitter, all those lakes out there are kicking butt. Devil's Lake, I'm seeing really good reports from Devil's Lake. So the fishing is good all over. I know it's still early ice, even though we're getting away from that early ice period, but it seems like the fishing's really, really good right now in a lot of locations. I know some of it has to do with forward-facing sonar and technology, but you can't always lean on that in the winter. Look at last winter out here. It was a tougher bite. Red Lake was good early, but then it sort of died off. It was just kind of, okay. This year, the bite has been really good in a lot of different locations. So Hey, let's take a quick break here. I know you guys, we got to pack up some gear yet. We'll let you guys cut you guys loose. Thank you so much for jumping in and agreeing to come out to Mille Lacs with me, cut some holes, and catch some walleyes for the day. I always enjoy fishing with you guys. It's great when you can lean on a couple of friends at last minute and say, hey, let's go out to Mille Lacs and film some dialed in angling. You guys were like, heck yeah, let's go do it. It's great to see the fishing of Mille Lacs a lot better than it was last year, and to see big numbers of fish like this and to see bigger fish like this come topside on the lake. It's been phenomenal. But hey, you're going to want to stay tuned. When we come back, I'm going to have fishing reports from all over the ice belt. Stay tuned all season long. We're going to be doing reports like this. Can't wait. I love the fishing reports that we're getting from our contributors each and every week. So stay tuned. We got more dialed in angling coming your way. The cold months are rolling in, but that doesn't mean the adventure slows down. There's only one way to make the most of winter, with the 2026 Ski-Doo lineup. Whether you're heading deep into your favorite fishing spots or carving your own path off the grid, Ski-Doo is built to take you there. And there's a reason Ski-Doo has been the best-selling snowmobile brand for more than 2 decades. Proven, reliable, world-class performance. Winter moves fast. If you want it, get it.
It's that time of year again, anglers. Winter is here, and L&M Fleet Supply is ready to make this your best season ever. Head into your favorite L&M Fleet Supply location across northern Minnesota, northern Wisconsin, or Michigan's UP, and browse the extensive collection of DeWalt tools and accessories, all guaranteed tough. Cut through the thickest ice with DeWalt's 20-volt drill. Brighten your setup with the assortment of 20-volt portable LED lights. And stay entertained with the DeWalt Bluetooth 20-volt speaker. It's weather-resistant, rugged, and ready for any adventure. Check out DeWalt's guaranteed tough deals and more at L&M Fleet Supply. Together, they're the perfect match for all your ice fishing needs.
If you're a last-minute shopper like myself and you're looking for the perfect gift idea for your loved ones for this holiday season, look no further. Check out fishusa.com. They've got gift cards. They've got all the greatest brands under one roof at fishusa.com. Okay, before I break into the fishing reports, I want to talk a little bit more about Mille Lacs fishing, give you some ice updates. Right now, we're sitting anywhere from 12 to 14 inches. We've been making ice, even though we had this warm up and it really knocked down the snow. The nighttime lows have been cold. We've had some cold days, and we're continuing to make ice. I'm seeing a ton of resorts dragging out houses. Some resorts are allowing vehicle traffic, although I'd use extreme caution. Me personally, as a guide service, I've got a bunch of customers coming up right after Christmas. We're still going to be taking out the Rangers. I want to be able to run and gun all over the lake. What I love about Mille Lacs is they're always biting somewhere. And if you watch this episode of Dialed in Angling, you'll see that we put on some miles, and I always do. That's what's cool about Mille Lacs Lake is there's so much structure out there that they're always biting somewhere. The last few seasons, we've seen a ton of bait in the lake. And so you'll get a really strong bite in one area or the other based on how much bait is in that area. Or, from season to season, it's always changing. One location of the lake will be hotter than another, and it happens year after year after year. And it's always changing and evolving. Some years the mud flats are on fire. Other years it's gravel bars. Sometimes it's shallow rock piles and the fish are biting all season long. And then other years, it seems like you're catching most of your fish out on the edges of the basin, just off a structure. And so a lake like Mille Lacs, you want to be able to run and gun and move wherever you want. So if you're like me and you're looking to do that this holiday season or just after Christmas here, or maybe just before, I would travel with ATV, UTV, snowmobile. Although there's not a ton of snow left on the lake, you can still kind of get around with sleds. But just to be safe, rather than driving, me personally, I want to be able to go anywhere. I haven't really found anything under 12 inches as of this week, but just to be certain and to be on the safe side, I'm always erring on the side of caution when it comes to ice safety. And so for me personally, at least until after the first of the year, I'm still going to be taking my ATVs, my Ranger, my UTV out and playing it safe that way. And then that way I can run all over the lake. I can check spots. I don't have to worry about that. I'll still be using the stake paths to get to certain locations out of, particular resorts. But from there, I feel comfortable branching out and checking spots. As far as the depths in which I'm finding fish, it's amazing because I'm getting a lot of reports of guys doing quite well still shallow. Even a daytime bite shallow on certain days, especially on cloudy days or kind of those darker days, that daytime bite window seems to last longer. Or if you get a day where it's sunny and you get some clouds that sneak in the afternoon, don't be afraid to try some of the shallow break lines. I know that North End has been really good. They're catching some of them in shallow water down in the bays, even along the rocks on the east side and west side, the points. If you're going to fish shallow, though, my advice is the fish are super spooky. Get out there, drill some holes, flip the otter over, and just start fishing. Don't worry about drilling a bunch of holes and moving around. Try to sit in one location, allowing those fish to come to you. Now, another thing to set up into those locations is I would highly recommend getting out to an area, use your forward-facing sonar, look around a little bit. If you're seeing a number of walleyes in your area, just kind of cruising, that's the perfect spot to set up. Okay, they're going to come to you eventually here. If you set up and you're patient, you've got your dead sticks down, and you're using a jig spoon or a rattle bait or a jig and wrap to call them to your location. But the walleyes have been cruising pretty good this week. There's times throughout the ice season where you have to go to them. You have to ice troll. You have to drop on top of them. Right now, that's not the time frame. Early ice is the time frame where you want to set up and be in a location and let those fish come to you. It's more like deer hunting rather than running and gunning. And when you watch this episode of Dialed In Angling, we had to do a lot of that. Rather than sharpshooting fish like we did last week's episode at Lake of the Woods, these fish were cruising, and so they were coming to us. And so we set up on the edges of structure, and we waited for those fish to come to them. But we didn't just pull up to a spot, drill a hole, and expect fish to come to us. We scouted. We got into areas like, man, there's a lot of walleyes around here. Let's drill a couple holes and just kind of hang tight and let the fish come to us. And you're going to hopefully watch this episode of Dialed In Angling this week on Mille Lacs. It'll give you some insight into what we were using, the hot baits, the aggressive mood of the fish, the difference between last year versus this year as far as the bite. Like I said, every year it changes, and I've been pleasantly surprised this season how good the fishing is on Mille Lacs based on last year. It's not like it's a red hot bite every day and every time I've been out there, but the bite is a lot better than it was last year. You're getting some bigger fish, especially during peak feeding periods. And, watch the moon phases and watch some of those peak feeding periods. I'm sort of torn sometimes on peak feeding windows. When you see the calendar, like you see the moon phase calendar, for years it was always in the back end Fisherman, or you can click on, some of these different websites or information where you can get peak feeding windows. I have had a few crazy ones this week where it seemed like, from 9 to noon, the bite was really, really good, whereas the morning evening bite wasn't as good. But then 2-3 days later, we had a crazy good afternoon bite, but the morning bite wasn't good. So I looked back just to check on some of these, peak feeding windows, and they sort of aligned. You found definitely some correlation between some of these peak feeding periods. And, I don't know what to believe. I've had some crazy good bite windows, especially during full moons on the ice. And, obviously pressure changes and weather patterns play a big role into when the fish are biting and when they're not. But this, when I was out this week, there was no real change in weather. It just all of a sudden the fish turned on and they were feeding for whatever reason. And so, whatever the case may be, I kind of looked back just to see what those bite windows were, and they pretty much fell in line with the time frames in which we were catching fish. So it was kind of neat. I do loosely follow those. Sometimes they disappoint you, but other times it seems like they're right on. So if you're heading to Mille Lacs this holiday season, I know a lot of folks, this might be the first time they're heading out for the year, or it may be the first time that they're fishing Mille Lacs, because there hasn't been a ton of traffic on Mille Lacs. If you are, I encourage you to go through a resort, use the stake paths, get out to safe ice, and really during peak feeding periods, get up on top of structure, whether it's a gravel bar, a rock pile, a mud flat, and fish right up on the top edge on a point, an inside turn, something of a point of interest. Jig fishing has been great. Seems like low light periods, that Wonder Bread color, any of the glow colors, glow pink, in the roach rattling spoon, the bull spoons, even the torpedo spoon, any of those bright UV colors, green UV, jigging wraps have been working excellent. And then during the daytime, you're definitely going to want to hard switch over to natural colors, the blues and silvers, the chromes, the golds, in whether you're fishing a spoon like a rattle and roach spoon, a bull spoon, any type of spoon you're fishing. Those golds and silvers have been great. Yellow perch color is another one, a real sneaky color where it's sort of silverish on the front and gold on the back. That's a VMC color that I love in a lot of baits. But that yellow perch color has been really good. And then jigging wraps. Don't be afraid to try number 5 jigging wraps. Blue chrome. There's a ton of young of the year. Well, I guess they're not young of the year, but smaller tulibies in the lake. There's a ton of we've seen some shiners come through. So chrome colors in addition to gold have been working really well. And during the day, just getting off the edges, working that deeper area, but then getting set up well before peak feeding periods. So in the afternoon, getting set up at like 3:30, either on the high percentage areas or where you caught them in the morning, go right back to those same areas, or setting up a little bit shallower. And don't be afraid to try extremely shallow. Sometimes you're pleasantly surprised on Mille Lacs how many walleyes you can get in 10, 12, 14 feet of water all season long in those really shallow areas. If you can get away from the crowds and you can remain quiet, keep the light low, you're going to catch fish. So let's cut over some fishing reports. I've got some great insight into some contributors across Minnesota and the Dakotas. All season long, we're going to continue the ice reports. I appreciate all the contributions from all these anglers that are sending in their reports. Hopefully it helps you get dialed in on these bites. So stay tuned. We got fishing reports coming your way. OnX Fish is the best tool I have ever used for finding new lakes to target. Quickly filter lakes by species, then select trophy potential, high abundance, keeper potential, or high stocking effort to find the fish you're after in the size and the numbers you are trying to catch. Download from the App Store today to get research tools for the serious anglers and beginners alike, giving you the data to target the right lakes and the confidence to get there. Use tools like recent imagery, fishing hotspot data, or the best-in-class weather features that call out current wind, weather, barometer, moon phase, majors and minors, along with precip and more. OnX Fish is a phenomenal tool both on and off the water for discovering new fishing opportunities, many of which you'd never known existed. Download OnX Fish Midwest today, the app that is changing the game on ice and open water.
Runnings Home, Farm, and Outdoor stores are celebrating 78 years, serving 90 local communities across the Upper Midwest, the Northeast, and America's Heartland. Runnings has everything you and your family need for your home, on the farm, and in the outdoors. Lawn and garden, hardware, farm and ranch supplies, sporting goods, housewares, snacks, and everything for your pets. Go to runnings.com to find one of the 90 locations near you, or shop online anytime at runnings.com. Runnings, your home, farm, and outdoor store.
There is nothing quite like Minnesota winter. Whether you want to try ice fishing, ice skating, or ice boating, make sure you know the risks and how to play safe on the ice. Measure ice thickness frequently and never go out alone. Always wear a life jacket or float coat and have ice picks readily accessible in case you fall through. Playing on the ice can be fun, but it's never 100% safe. Learn how you could play safe before you go out. Safety is always in season. A message from the Minnesota DNR.
Trigger Roach with TR Guide Service here in the beautiful Brander Lakes area. Ice is looking great. We got between 9.5 to 12 inches of ice. Some lakes topping out at 13 inches, which has been great. Fishing's been consistent. We've been getting a lot of walleyes up in the shallows, 10 to 15 feet of water. Jig and spoons and dead sticks have been crucial. Some walleyes we've been getting a little bit deeper as they've been transitioning from the deep to shallows. Crappies out in the basins using small tungsten jigs with plastics and waxworms to get those. And the bluegills are hanging up shallow on the tight weed edges. Look for green weeds and you'll find the bluegills. It's Trig Roach. We'll see you in the next one.
What is going on, guys? Brandon Olson here with Lockjaw Guide Service. We are giving you a live report from Otter Tail Lakes County on the ice. We are sitting on a great 13 inches of ice. Most of our lakes are anywhere from 11 to 14 inches, depending on where you go, and we are seeing a fair amount of vehicle travel already. So snow is not an issue. We don't have any of it. Ice cleats are pretty much a must. Fishing-wise, we're seeing a lot of really good panfish in two different spots. Shallow weed flats in 8 to 12 feet of water, and mud basins in anywhere from 15 to 30, 35 feet of water. As always, be careful when fishing past about 30 feet so you don't harm those fish. Please catch only what you're going to keep and let the rest go. Walleye-wise, we're seeing two different main patterns showing up. Super shallow, 4 to 8 feet of water on the inside of the weed edge, and on the opposite end, the deeper side of that weed edge in 12 to 18, 19, 20 feet, depending on your lake. Most of these fish are wanting an aggressive approach. Jigging has by far been the best. Set lines are getting one here and there, but keep that bait moving and keep it rolling. So that's what we got coming from Otter Tail Lakes County. I hear the rattle reel going. I'm going to go ahead and get that fish. Have a good one.
Hi, this is Josh Bolivant with Trappers Landing Lodge on beautiful Leech Lake. Current ice conditions are great across the area. We're finding 14 to 17 inches of ice out here in front of the resort on the south shore of Leech Lake. Hearing the same reports up in Portage and Sucker Bays and over in the Traders Bay area of the same amount of ice thickness. There are some ice heaves out there, so please use caution if you're deciding to drive off the roads or out of those different resorts. Just follow their staked areas, get a map where those are before heading out and going cross country. Best method of travel if you're going to go off country is going to be snowmobile, ATV, any side-by-side off-roads, and then make sure you're following when the roads open up here, and a majority of the resorts are opening up December 26th. Make sure you're following their stakes out there. Walleye fishing continues to be an evening bite out on Leech Lake right now. You're going to want to look in those 12 to 15-foot areas, rock sand transitions, rock piles, jigging spoon with a minnow head, and then also a set line with a full minnow. They'll come into your jigging spoon and usually hit that set minnow right now in those evening times. During the daytime, perch continues to go pretty strong out in those sand mud transitions out in front of the resort here in that 20 to 25 foot range on Leech Lake. And then the crappies and bluegills are starting to move into the basins on the smaller lakes. Again, kind of use caution, check ahead if you're going to drive out on those lakes. So from all of us here in the Leech Lake area, have a Merry Christmas, and we look forward to seeing everybody on the.
Okay, it's a final wrap on this week's podcast. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas to everybody. Hopefully everybody has a safe and happy holiday season. You get to spend some time with loved ones. I know for me and my family, after we're done unwrapping presents and having a nice meal together, we go fishing. And that holiday week in between Christmas and New Year's, we spend a ton of time fishing. We do it as a family. You know, last year we had my kids out there with the dog. We threw the dog on the snowmobile and jetted out to the portable that we had set up, did a little walleye fishing. This year's no different. We're going to do a little fishing on Mille Lacs. We're going to spend some time around home. It's always a great time to take advantage of the kids being out of school and just doing an adventure trip. So, you know, doing it safely and having fun with family, that's what the holidays are all about. I know a lot of people are busy traveling, but after the Christmas holiday season and in between then and New Year's, you know, hopefully you can get out and enjoy some time with your family. And hopefully we've given you some insight into how to catch fish in these areas and these regions. We're going to have fishing information all season long. We've got a great lineup of Dialed In Angling episodes on TV. We'd love for you to tune in, like and subscribe to our channels. We've got a ton of great information on all sorts of different species across the ice belt all season long. So thanks for tuning in. Until next week, I'm Tony Roach. This has been the Dialed In Angling Podcast.